Lincoln's cabinet has been called a team of rivals. I think it's more accurate to say it was a team full of cognitive diversity, where Lincoln deliberately chose people who had different observable behaviors to be in his cabinet. Lincoln himself was a master at building and managing consensus on very tough issues, and we see that through the entire management of the war. For his Secretary of State, he chose William Seward, who was somebody who could rally lots of people behind Lincoln's ideas and new innovations. For his Secretary of War, he chose Edwin Stanton, who was masterful at organizing, coordinating, and synchronizing all of the complicated operations that it took to keep the war in multiple theaters going. And then he brought on Salmon Chase as his Treasury Secretary, who was the person who masterminded the financial strategy that enabled the Union to continue funding the war and ultimately to win it. And finally, he brought on General Ulysses S. Grant, who was the person that masterminded the war strategy that eventually defeated the Confederate military and won the war for the Union. Now, the magic of Lincoln's cabinet is based on these different observable contributions. Here's a language to understand those observable contributions and how you can recreate the same effect in your organization. We call these the PROM archetypes. And PROM stands for Pioneers, Reconcilers, Operators, and Mavericks. And each of the four have different observable contributions to your organization. Here's the science. Some of us are extroverts. Extroverts get their energy by being around other people. Introverts, on the other hand, gain their energy by being by themselves or being with a smaller group of people. That's how we recharge our batteries. It has nothing to do with people skills. It has everything to do with where we gain and recapture our energy. Some people are idea-centric. They think in terms of ideas, and others think in terms of details. Now, these are ways that we're hardwired as people, and this hardwiring creates different observable contributions in our organization. So your idea-centric extroverts are what we call pioneers. Pioneers are people who love to rally others behind new ideas and new innovations. So in Lincoln's cabinet, it was William Seward, George Patton, Mark Zuckerberg, our classic pioneers. Your detail-oriented extroverts are what we call reconcilers. Reconcilers are people who have this inordinate ability to build and manage consensus, to handle all of the difficult egos that might be around the table, to resolve drama and disputes and keep people aligned and moving forward on challenging issues or policies. Lincoln, classic reconciler. Dwight Eisenhower was also a reconciler. Now, your introverted and detail-oriented tend to be operators. Operators make the trains run on time. They do things to a very high standard. They can coordinate, organize, and synchronize very complicated operations. Edwin Stanton in Lincoln's cabinet was the operator. George Washington was an operator. Your idea-centric introverts tend to be mavericks. Mavericks are the people who love to solve complex, wicked problems. They're your big strategic thinkers and innovators. In Lincoln's cabinet, it was Salmon Chase. For his general, Ulysses S. Grant, who was also a maverick. And these four archetypes are what allowed Lincoln to create cognitive diversity in his cabinet. It was all based on these observable contributions. Now, this differs from your Personality tests, they can be useful in some respects, but they won't give you cognitive diversity. You can have high Ds and low Ds and high Cs and low Cs. They can all be pioneers or they can all be operators. It really doesn't tell you how they contribute to your organization, but PROM does that. Organizations, of course, need all four to be most successful. Now, we've seen what happens when organizations are lacking in cognitive diversity. For instance, Google in the late 1990s, full of pioneers and full of Mavericks. So this was Google in the 1990s. The challenge is they couldn't get anything done. And the venture capitalists that were funding them finally said, bring in people who can actually run the business or we're done here. And so they brought on Eric Schmidt, who's a reconciler, and John Rosenberg, who is an operator, and the rest, of course, is history. Mark Zuckerberg, classic pioneer. If you watch the movie The Social Network, you can see some of Zuckerberg's struggles with creating a successful business. He brought on an operator in Sheryl Sandberg, and Facebook is now one of the most successful companies on the planet. Militaries and big organizations tend to be full of detail-oriented people because big organizations tend to like people who don't rock the boat, tend to like people who do what they're told. The result in a lot of big organizations is complacency. We saw that complacency with the military in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sears started out as a very innovative company, sending catalogs on trains to the far west so people could order the goods and Sears would send it out to them. There's no reason why Sears couldn't have been Amazon, but they were content to do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results. And Sears is now out of business and Amazon is thriving. When you think about people's natural contributions, their observable contributions, you can help each person be the best version of themselves. Now, oftentimes what leaders will do is they will try to create mini-me's. They will try to coach you to be like they are. PROM gives you a language to recognize that different people have different superpowers. They contribute to the organization in different ways. So you want your pioneers to be the best possible version of themselves, the best pioneers. You want your reconcilers to be the best possible reconcilers. And in our quick reference guide, we show you exactly what those superpowers are and how you bring out the best in each archetype and prune away the things that are holding them back. There's no pejoratives. There's no high Ds or low Cs or any other reds and greens, etc. Look, don't get sick, but if somebody calls you a high D, they're probably saying that you're a difficult person to work with. You don't have any of that in PROM. You have pioneers, reconcilers, operators, and mavericks, and you have healthy, average, and unhealthy versions of each one. You can find out your PROM archetype by going to our quiz here at strategicleadersacademy.com/leader-quiz. Find out more about your PROM archetype and your superpowers and how to inspire people to contribute their best to your organization's success and to create the kind of cognitive diversity that is going to allow your organization to thrive.